All right, welcome back, everybody. This is Ron here with Jake. You might remember Jake from the last podcast we did. It was the Drunken Idaho podcast, where obviously we're going to keep doing that, and we're going to be talking about Dune. We're going to be talking about the first book again, and we're going to be finishing all of the novels and also discussing the movie. But we kind of wanted to do a little bit of something different because we, obviously that's such a limited topic, and we like a lot of things in the sci-fi genre. And I've actually never made a full video about this movie that we're going to talk about, but it's definitely one of our favorite movies. It's probably my favorite movie of all time.
Yeah, mine too.
Well, there you go. Yeah. So
yeah,
instead of making a video, there's been so many videos on YouTube reviewing the movie and dissecting it, but I thought it would be better for me to do a full podcast on it.
Yeah.
Why not? So, Jake, how you doing today, man?
I'm hanging in there, bud. What's going on?
Not much. We'll get into, I guess, the movie first. There's a lot of other things surrounding Blade Runner. Yeah. Obviously, people that aren't that are new to my channel might not know this, but I have a Blade Runner video. It's kind of pretty rough critique of the comic books. Oh, okay. I read just the first trade paperback of
I haven't
the
even
comic
read
series.
That. I've always wanted to get acquainted with that type of thing. It's I don't know. It's definitely cool.
You know what's weird is I wanted a Blade Runner type comic for the longest time, and I know a while back they did a version of Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, and for anybody listening that might not know, that is pretty much the source material for Blade Runner. That was a Philip K. Dick novel.
Great book.
Yeah, great book. A little bit different than the movie. They changed some things.
Tonally, it's even different, it feels like.
Yeah, but they did an adaptation of that. They pretty much just took it straight from the book, all the text, but they did it in comic book form.
Really? Did it work?
I never read it. I obviously read the book, so I know I'm familiar with the book.
All right.
I've never read the comic.
Oh, okay.
The Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep. That's probably good. But other than that, there wasn't a Blade Runner film universe type comic.
Which is surprising because it came out in the early 80s, and that seemed like the time where they were making these comic book properties based on these film properties. Like, immediately. They did it with, like, Star Wars. They did it with fucking almost everything back then.
Oh, yeah.
It just went straight to comic book. I'm honestly surprised that one didn't kind of take off in some way. Or they didn't try and do anything with it.
I mean, I think it's the same reason that Blade Runner 2049 didn't really do that well. Okay. Because Blade Runner is still a cult thing, really. It's kind of a cool thing. I know it's very popular movie as far as, movie people that love movies know Blade Runner. And it's a weird movie too because you either love it or you hate it. There's no in between. There's no real
it's like Rush. The band Rush.
Yeah, right.
You either love Rush or you fucking hate Rush.
Yeah. So, I mean, we can get into that a little bit too, but so the comic, I was really, I don't know.
All right, take me through it.
Yeah, we'll talk about that first, just a little bit.
Take me through it.
It's I really wanted a Blade Runner comic for the longest time, and then when I read that, I was like, maybe this was a bad idea.
Too soon.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just. I almost don't even want to talk about it.
So, like, lukewarm, terrible.
It's not like it's terrible. It just seemed like, and I go through this a little bit in my review on the channel.
Right.
It's kind of like a mediocre procedural type show.
So it almost feels like one of those old film novelizations to a certain degree. Just like some of them are very good, and most of them are kind of terrible. And it's just kind of like a. It's just
the series of events. I forget pretty much the main story, like as far as the characters go. They weren't very memorable. I don't even remember the character names.
Yeah.
But it was all about this guy goes to the female Blade Runner. Obviously, it's a female Blade Runner now.
That seems to be the trend.
Yeah. It's like, we already
we need a woman in there.
Yeah, I listened to an interview of the guy who wrote it, and he's like, we've already had 2 white men. So we can't have another white man be Blade Runner again. I'm like, oh, God.
Oh, no.
As soon as you say shit like that, I'm like, I know you guys aren't taking the story seriously.
It's like whatever serves the story. I don't care
what color you are. I
don't care what gender you are. Like, just tell the fucking story that you're trying to tell. As soon as that comes into your frame of mind, and just terms of like one of your main focuses. You know what I mean? Oh, this has to be about a Hawaiian woman. You know, like, and you're just like, what the fuck are you talking about? Why?
Yeah.
Why does this have to do? Like, why?
It's so stupid. And I don't have a problem with a female Blade Runner, like whatever, as long as it was
not at
good.
all.
It just, they have to tell you. That's the other thing I mentioned in my review too. They have to tell you in the opening little crawl thing, you know, kind of like in the movie Blade Runner, where they explain everything about the Tyrell Corporation and replicants.
Yeah, context.
They have to say that this girl is the best. She's the best Blade Runner that's ever been a Blade Runner. Yeah, and they even say it. Other people, I've heard other guys that do comic book reviews and stuff now, they'll say that a lot of these new writers, when they have a different agenda than just telling a cool story, they have to validate their main character. So whoever it is, he or she, whatever.
Yeah.
Most of the time when it's a girl, for some reason, they have to have other characters tell her that she's the best.
Oh, that's horrible.
It just kind of throws you out of it. So right away, I'm like, this isn't Blade Runner. This is just like modern storytelling.
Nobody in Blade Runner really tries to validate themselves, you know what I mean? Like, that is not the type of world you're in. The only people who are really validating themselves are people like Tyrell, people like Wallace.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? These fucking uber rich lunatics.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Who are so they're out of their freaking minds. But really, everybody else is just trying to scrape by in this universe. Everybody,
right?
You know, I think most of the civilization is on Mars or something like that at that point. All of the super rich people are over there. They only have the handful of corporations still back on Earth, you know, and everybody's literally fending for themselves. You can't validate yourselves. You don't really amount to anything in Blade Runner, you know, like, and that's kind of crazy.
And then the other thing that I thought was pretty stupid about it too was she kind of has her own narration, you know, sort of like Deckard, where she's going through the motions, saying some stuff. Yeah, no, it's fine. But in the beginning of the book, she's talking about how she has some sort of problem with her back, so she's got kind of like cybernetics on her back, so whatever.
She has a lumbago.
Yeah, I don't even know. I forget what
another term for lower back pain.
Okay, so she in the book opens up with her literally hunting down a replicant just so she could steal parts from him to use for herself. Like, so that's what she does on the side. Is kind of like so it's like
Repo Man almost.
Right, but then halfway through the book, she's talking about how she works alone now because she meets up with one of the other, whether it's a cop or a Blade Runner, I don't know. Okay. But she meets up with him, and she's like, he was such a jerk. This is why I work alone. Like, he's such a bad guy. I'm like, bitch, you were just hunting down this poor replicant to steal his body parts to help yourself. I'm like, you're just as bad. So why am I gonna sympathize with you at all?
Yeah, I can see that.
So anyway, we don't have to get into that stuff, but that sucks because that series is still going on now. Like they're making a bunch of those books.
How long has the series been out?
That first one only came out a couple years ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So it's pretty new, and they're doing this whole. I think they're going back and telling the stories of the first replicants and all that stuff.
Okay.
And they're also going off-world, which all sounds interesting. If it was just Blade Runner and not
a Blade Runner with an agenda.
Like everything. I mean, you've heard people. We won't harp on that stuff too much. No, it's just annoying.
It is very annoying. Like I don't like anybody literally going in there with an agenda. If your agenda is going there or going into something, trying to tell a good, like the best story you can or a good story. That's one thing, dude. Nobody's gonna fight you on that. And if you fail, you fail. If you don't, you don't. You know what I mean?
Right.
But if you go in there and you're just trying to fucking be political and trying to get your bullshit politics out there into this world and sacrificing something that people love, you know, just for your own fucking self-validation, you're a piece of shit. You know, like,
it's
like,
just not
fuck
good.
you. Well, it's just you're stepping on my toes. Like Blade Runner, I would love to read a Blade Runner comic, but as soon as I feel like it's, you know, it's gonna get political or it's gonna do anything like that, it's just like, well, fuck you. Now I can't read it. You know what I mean? Because I don't want you to ruin something that's my favorite. I gave Star Wars that chance. And they shit my
Don't
cereal.
get me started on that.
Oh, no. That's a whole other podcast.
So that sucks because I read that first trade. I'm like, all right, it'll be cool to do a review of that.
Oh, absolutely.
But after that first trade, I was like, I don't even want to continue, even to do good reviews on it or whatever.
Was there anything redemptive about it? Was the art good?
The art was okay. There were some, and I say that in my review too, there were some panels that were pretty cool. They had that, it's not really a blimp. You know what I'm talking about. Blade Runner.
Yep.
With the off-world thing on it. And the spinners looked pretty cool. The artwork was all right. It wasn't terrible.
Good.
But, you know, it's all about the story for me, too. And it's also hard to capture that vibe that the movie captured just with pictures.
All right. So I think it is and it isn't. So I think, at least in my perspective, if they were to do something like that and do it well, it would be almost like fucking... Sin City, you know, but when you see a billboard, it's in color. You know what I mean? It's
that could be cool.
Noir. You know what I mean? It's literally a film noir in the form of a science fiction movie.
Yeah,
or a story or whatever.
Which is why Blade Runner was so original when it came out.
Oh, absolutely, dude! That shit broke ground, dude.
It did. All right, so let's get into that. I'm done talking about the stupid comic. Let's talk about something good here.
Right.
Let's cleanse our palate here with that.
All right,
so yeah, what was your first experience with Blade Runner? Did you like it when you first saw it? How did you feel?
Okay, so when I was like growing up, you'd see shit on like TNT or one of those channels, cable channels and stuff, and they would show like whatever, so a coming thing or AMC. And that was one of those movies where I always saw the trailer for it before I actually saw it, and the trailers never made any fucking sense. I was like, what am I seeing? You know what I mean? Because it was always some 15-second spot of this, that, and the third, and everything was so random. You had Rutger Hauer, super blonde, up there in the fucking rain. You had, Harrison Ford looking like, what the fuck is going on? Most of the time, he's just totally confused, most of that movie. Then you had, what the hell is her name? Sean Young. Yeah, super hot. The whole
Rachel.
movie. She is so hot in that movie, dude.
I
crazy
agree.
as a fucking... Well, she's crazy as fuck.
In real life, yes,
Yeah.
but...
She was hot in that movie.
Yes.
But it was a couple of years of that, and I had to be like 11, 12 years old. You know what I mean? So I was just kind of... That was off-putting about it, so I didn't really want to give it a chance. And I think I finally gave it a chance around 13, 14 years old. And I sat down, and at that age, I didn't quite understand everything that was philosophically going on with the story, because it's dense and that's a complicated story if you want to break it down. But it's also so simple, you know what I mean? It's really, really a simple story. But I didn't quite get it, but I loved it. I love the atmosphere of it. I love how it starts, you know what I mean? Like all these pyramids, and you get to see the city, and you're just kind of cruising through it, and you're like, what the fuck? What world? Like, what is this? You've never seen it other than Star Wars or Alien or anything like that. You don't really get that kind of shit, especially done that well. It seems like you have to go to the mid-'70s up through like the early 80s, and you get some of the best science fiction just world, like how things, it was amazing in cinema. But I mean, that was, I watched it, I didn't quite understand it, but I kind of loved it. And it took me until I was about maybe 14, 15, 16, like watching it over and over again. Like it was like Star Wars for me back then. I just kept revisiting it. And I just fell in love with that movie, dude. It's like a total comfort zone movie. I could be having the worst day possible, but if I, ended my day, fucking get in the shower, get out of the shower, put on Blade Runner, and fall asleep before I have to go to wake up for work the next day, that was a good day. Yeah. But it's a day it's a movie that makes my day now.
Yeah, but I have similar feelings towards it. It's a very hypnotizing movie. I always say that because if you watch it late at night or something, it's like taking a sedative or something. Yeah. The whole mood of it.
Yep.
The thing is, it's slow, but at the same time, it's not paced slow. It's not a chore to watch.
No.
Especially upon, more rewatch.
Yeah.
Like when you rewatch it.
Yeah, when you revisit it. Sure.
It's probably the most rewatchable movie for me personally.
Oh, dude, I am right there with you.
And the first time I saw it, I don't remember how old I was. I didn't. It's so weird to think this now.
It's hard.
I didn't get it.
Yeah.
I didn't understand what was going on, but it is such a simple story. If we're just looking at the plot.
Sure.
Very, very simple.
Yeah.
You got a guy that kind of comes out of semi-retirement. He quit. I guess that's basically what Deckard says.
Right.
And then he has to come back to basically retire a couple replicants that have
the Nexus 6.
The Nexus 6 models that were off-world and came back to Earth.
Yeah.
And now they're blending in with society, and Harrison Ford's character's tasked to take them out. That's it's really as simple as that as far as the plot goes. But like you said, there's a lot more deeper shit going on throughout the whole movie.
Absolutely.
And I think the main thing... Well, first of all, I love futuristic settings and stuff like that. Even when I was younger, watching stuff like Fifth Element, that was always...
Me too. I love that movie as well. Yeah.
I like that aesthetic, and I liked
you've always had a disposition for just those kinds of films. Okay.
So then when you watch Blade Runner, which pretty much started that whole that whole genre, really.
Yeah.
And anything you see now that's futuristic, cyberpunk, all that stuff, it all came from the visuals came from Blade Runner.
Oh yeah.
And I think it stands the test of time because there's no CG in it. Mm-hmm. It's all practical stuff, and all the models are fantastic. It still looks great today when you watch it on Blu-ray, which is amazing.
That's true. That's one of those rare 80s movies where it was put up there on high definition, and you know what? It holds up.
It holds up fine.
I love that movie.
I know, it's great. And then the main thing for me, you take all that into account. The icing on the cake is the music by Vangelis, which is my favorite score ever. Mm-hmm. It's so dark. Yeah. It's so moody. Mm-hmm. It fits the movie perfectly, and it almost, for me, it makes the movie. It's like it's almost like I'm watching this really long, I wouldn't say music video, like visuals to his score.
Honestly, I never really sat down and tried to analyze the score for that movie. I think until after we started hanging out, and you kept on bringing up Vangelis and all that stuff every time the topic got brought up. And honestly, there are some of those deep tracks on that album that are just some of the best composition I've ever heard. Like Rachel's song. Yeah,
not even in the movie, but it's so good. And when you listen to it, you're in the world of the movie. It just fits with it perfectly. It
takes you right there. And I think that's a reason why this film works, because it's not one of those big flashy fucking action movies. It's a movie where you just kind of get invested in the world. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Almost as much as the characters, because the characters don't really do or say much for a while. You're just kind of going through the motions like Harrison Ford is for a good half of the movie. You know what I mean? He's like, what the fuck? He knows his job and all that stuff, but he just, going through the motions. It's another day on the job that just happens to turn into something a little different. Mm-hmm. And that's what makes that movie work. Yeah. It starts out. What is it in the? I don't like the one with the
with the narration. That's the theatrical cut. Yeah, so that's the thing too. It's great to have that Blu-ray with all the. I used to just come home all the time and just watch all the different versions, because in that, I don't know, do you have the
I have the final
with
cut.
The final cut? You just have the final cut, or you have everything?
It has multiple versions.
Yeah, it has the work print one with different music, which is hilarious.
It did work for me.
No, but it's funny to see all those things, and I would just watch all different versions. I prefer the final cut because I feel like when somebody's not into something, how can I be into it? And the whole backstory with Harrison Ford, he didn't want to do that narration at all. Yeah, so he purposely tried to do a bad job. Yeah, and they still kept it.
Well, he was Harrison Ford, you know what I mean? Yeah. So they felt like that would score him a couple points or something like that with the audience. I don't know what the hell their frame of mind was with that. It did not work. It's just like the bullshit they had where it was him and Rachel in that orb. and they were floating over like the fucking forest or something.
Oh well,
like
yeah,
that.
they were just in a car. Yeah, it was just like a futuristic car, and that was their. They needed the studio or whatever wanted a happy ending for whatever
that was
bullshit.
B-roll from I think
The Shining.
The Shining.
Yep.
Yeah, it was actually Kubrick footage, which I always thought was crazy.
Okay, so obviously this is regarded as one of the best science fiction movies of all time, if not the definitive
I would agree
science
with that.
fiction movie.
Yep.
It is kind of weird. You know, I could talk about my personal life. I really don't have any friends that like this movie.
Really?
You're either really into this shit or you're not at all. And that's kind of what I said earlier.
That's so true.
And I'm just kind of wondering what that is. I guess it is a very moody movie. It's not like there's a ton of action in it.
Right.
But it's so interesting. Like, I could just watch the Voight Kampf scene.
Oh, yeah. The Voight Kampf test.
When he goes into Tyrell Corp.
Yeah.
It's all about the mood and the music, and when Tyrell comes in and the lighting of it, where there's this weird like and they kind of continue that in the Blade Runner 2049.
Oh yeah.
Just with that weird lighting effect where it's strobing, and I don't really know how to explain it. I know that it drove people, like the crew of the movie, nuts because that's what Ridley Scott. He explained how he got that effect. I don't remember exactly what he said.
Right.
And they're like, "Why are you doing that? It's distracting us. You know, it's distracting for the shot that we're trying to make." And he's like, "Because I want it."
Right.
And I like that.
Scott,
I think he was more daring when he was younger, making Alien, obviously, which is another one of my favorite science fiction movies.
Oh, me
and
too. Yep.
Blade Runner. He knew what he wanted. And I think that was his genius back in the day, because everybody's like, what are you doing with these weird strobe effects? And then that would probably influence other people years from when they made that.
Absolutely.
To have cool effects, to make it a little more sinister looking. He was way ahead of everybody visually.
He paved the way for a lot of that. You know what I mean? Just in turn, I mean, I guess a lot of it came from obviously what happened with Jodorowsky's Dune and stuff like that, and the whole crew that came from there, and then he took that crew and they made Alien, you know, H.R. Geiger,
I think Mobius even did some concept art, which is great.
Yeah, I think he designed the in the opening sequence of Alien, he did the space suits. So like you like the full-on helmets and all that shit when they're showing the whatever, all that equipment and shit in some of the opening sequences. I think most of that's Mobius.
That's awesome. That's great.
He went and did another
I think the suits too, right?
Yeah,
the space suits.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Oh, okay.
His space suits. That's all Mobius.
Sorry.
Yeah, and I think that was one of the only things they really used from his concept art. I could be mistaken on that. I think it was mostly Giger. Mm-hmm. And fuck, he did such a good job too.
I know, it's awesome.
Like that.
And this to me is even a step above Alien. In his career, which is so. I mean, you could debate it all you want. If somebody came to me and said, "I think Alien's better than Blade Runner," I'm not going to argue with you.
No, that's fair. That's fair.
I go Blade Runner first, then Alien.
Yes, it's definitely with me too.
But I guess there could be arguments could be made.
They are comparable.
Yeah,
so without a doubt,
they're both fantastic. But yeah, so it's such a cool opening. It sets the mood right away. You have like the fan and the Tyrell Corp, and the guy's pretty much doing the Voight Kampf test on Leon.
The most shifty looking motherfucker ever.
Yeah. He's like, I'm definitely not a replicant. I swear to God.
Yep.
It's just so obvious.
I swear to God, I don't have any idea what the fuck you're talking about, sir.
It's great. And
they didn't check him. That's what that's like. Really? He just like pulls all of a sudden. They get through this whole thing, and it's like, tell me about this experience you had in your life. He's like, okay, well, it wasn't that bad. And by the way, mom, and then he like pulls a fucking pistol out of his fucking bunghole, and all of a sudden he shoots this dude. It's like they didn't search him.
Yeah, no, the security sucks at fucking Tyrell Corp, I guess.
Horrible.
Was that at Tyrell Corp? I think it was.
I think it was one of their
buildings. Because it looks like one of those weird pyramid buildings.
That's what I always thought it was. I always assumed it was Tyrell.
Yeah. So that kind of sets up, all right, these replicants they're on the run. People are after them. Mm-hmm. Then you get Harrison Ford playing perfect, just
Harrison Ford
down on his luck.
Yeah.
He's eating Chinese food. He's a drunk, you know.
Right.
And that's when another great character comes in, Gaff, to basically bring him back into the fold.
Yep.
And
who
Edward James Olmos.
Oh, Edward James Olmos. That's
and it's great because he kind of made up his own language in the movie because he thought, well, in the future, I feel like there should be a couple different languages mixed together. So he combined certain languages. So when you hear him say something really weird in the movie, it's because that was his idea to do that. Which I thought was cool.
Actors are so fucking out of their minds,
Hey, but at least he gave a shit about it.
No, he totally did give a fuck. I think everybody generally, except for Harrison Ford, really gave a damn.
Yeah. He never gives a shit. He's like, oh,
just I really wish. So when's the next Indiana Jones movie?
Yeah.
Like that's...
Wasn't that pretty much the only thing that he liked doing?
He loved doing that, as far as my understanding.
Yeah, because he hated being Han Solo. He hated being Deckard. He hated working for Ridley Scott. They butted heads a lot. So he's tough.
It was magic, dude. You know,
it was great.
Oh, dude, like I couldn't imagine. Honestly, that's one of those movies where I couldn't imagine replacing him either.
No, definitely not.
Like he did such a good job, and everybody did a great job for that movie. Who the hell? The chick.
Are we talking about Rachel or Pris?
Not Rachel.
Pris is Daryl Hannah.
Daryl fucking Hannah. She was great in that movie.
She was great too. Yeah, she was like a supermodel, and then they brought her in to do that character because she's described in the beginning as one of the pleasure models. Mm-hmm. So
she certainly had legs all the way up to her ass.
Yeah.
Holy crap.
So that she's great in it too, and then you have probably the standout as far as performance goes is Rutger Hauer as Roy Batty.
Dude, he knocks it out of the fucking park. And
it's an iconic performance.
He is such a weirdo in the best way.
He again, just like Edward James Olmos, just gave a shit about it.
Yeah, but where Edward James Olmos was almost like a more concentrated part. It was much more limited. You know what I mean? To his screen, he had very limited screen time, a very limited part in the story, but he made the most of it, and he did a fucking great job. Rutger Hauer, I think there was a little more weight on his shoulders because that could have been just another android science fiction fucking bullshit part in a movie where it's just like, oh, he's human, but he's not that human, and he could have not taken it seriously, and it wouldn't have been nearly as good. Mm-hmm. And that ending sequence, you know what I mean? Like that, he knocks it out of the fucking park.
Yeah.
Like that whole performance.
That's another thing that he made up. He wrote the lines out for that.
The Tears in the Rain.
Yep.
Yeah, that stuff. Yep.
So it was kind of like this little poem that he made up in his trailer before they went out to shoot it, which was great.
So what is your best? Not your best. What's your favorite Rutger Hauer sequence in that movie?
Oh man, you know what? I'd have to say the first main one where he goes in to choose little whatever his little laboratory where he's making the eyes, because that's my favorite line ever when he's talking to him and he goes, I do eyes, I did your eyes.
Right, exactly.
And he's like, Chew, if only you could have seen what I've seen with your eyes. I'm like, that is like the coolest line ever.
Yep.
So that might be my favorite part, just because it's a really cool introduction to his character.
That. Me too.
But I also, when you watch it again after listening to, I don't know if you ever watched, I think it's called Dangerous Days, the documentary on Blade Runner. It's on the special features of the Blu-ray.
Oh, probably. Yeah.
He explains, I'm pretty sure it's on that, Rutger Hauer explains that he played Roy Batty as if he was kind of like a mischievous child, because if you think about it, he's only, what's their lifespan? Like 7 years? So he played him as a 6 or a 7 year old getting into mischief.
Yeah.
And you can kind of see it a little bit when they're messing around or playing around, especially with J.F. Sebastian.
Right.
And you kind of see him like giggle a little bit. And when he says, "You have wonderful toys," like he means it. He is kind of portraying himself as a younger
He's an adolescent.
Kid. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So I thought that was interesting, and you definitely see it with subsequent viewings, which is
I would
awesome.
agree. I definitely agree with that. I also love it when he he barges into Tyrell's quarters.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean, and that whole confrontation happens. It's just that there's something cool about that too. It's almost like what happens when man confronts God.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Do you accept it, or do you kill God and become God? You know what I mean? And I think that's kind of where he was getting at to a certain degree, or at least to some degree.
Yeah, and they have that underlying, real chess game going on.
Yeah.
So that kid adds into it.
Well, you didn't see that move coming, and I don't know how.
Interesting.
He really, Tyrell Wallace had the same thing in kind of 2049. He helped he helped supply people with food, and he did all this kind of crazy shit. He did all the next gen stuff for Tyrell, and he was just playing at God.
Yeah.
So it's either you're a nothing, you're a peasant in Blade Runner 29, or you think you're a god, and that's bizarre to me. It's just like, really. And it's they have to have so many yes men around them and shit, like, just yes, that's a perfect idea, Mr. Tyrell, thank you. And same thing with Wallace. I don't know who do you think was more tolerable, Tyrell or Wallace?
Just as far as a viewer, just watching the movie. Just
watching the movie. It's just like, I can't stand that fucking guy.
Well, I like Tyrell's performance. The guy who
I'm not shitting on his performance or anything like it. Just in terms of like the character.
I like Tyrell better as a I guess you could call him a villain. He's basically just there. He's just he's an evil corporation guy, I guess.
Yes.
I just love that. I love that scene too when Decker comes in to do the Voight-Kampff test.
Yeah.
And he's like, try Rachel, because she's kind of the next evolution, and he wants to see if how long it takes for Deckard to figure out, and it takes him longer than anyone he's ever done the test on.
That's one of my favorite sequences in the whole movie.
Great little just one-on-one scene. Love it.
Yeah.
I also love a lot of the quieter moments in this movie are awesome.
Yeah.
I love a good scene where people are just sitting down and drinking, and Deckard does a bunch of that in this, which is great. He's just in his apartment, his like weird futuristic apartment,
right,
drinking some whiskey.
Yeah.
Trying to solve this, kind of mystery. He has a bunch of pictures,
right?
And that kind of leads him to some other. What's her name again? The other girl ones. It's like Zora something.
I think it's Zora.
Yeah. So I love that scene. I think you could say it goes on a little long, but I love that because at the time,
yeah,
that was probably crazy too. Watching in the theaters when people first saw Blade Runner back in the day. Obviously, we have a lot more technology now, but him enhancing the picture, it was probably really cool back in the day. Like,
for sure.
Zooming in, moving to the side to see what, to try to get something in frame.
Yeah.
While he's just getting shit-faced. I love it.
Absolutely. The overcomplicated look of somebody in the 1970s, 1960s, 1980s, like anywhere, like when they thought of the future, it's just like, what kind of technology do you think they have in the year 2019? And it's just like the most overcomplicated, lo-fi, almost primitive fucking shit. And I just love what they tried to do with a lot of that stuff. A lot of those movies did it very well. Blade Runner, Alien almost did that very well, but it's kind of odd. I just like where their heads were at. It's just like, why would that be why do you think that would be a thing in the future?
Well, the funny thing is they're showing all this technology that they have, but all the screens look like little TVs that I had in my room in like 1994.
Exactly. It's just like, wow.
But I love that retro futuristic look, especially in a lot of other 80s movies as well.
I think a lot of those movies come from Ridley Scott.
Yeah.
So it's almost like that was one of his things back in the day. Obviously, he's deviated now. He's not quite the same man he used to be in that respect. But I just love that. I love all the practical effects. It's
the models are great.
Oh, dude.
And the design of the spinner is one of the best designs. I still don't know why to this day they haven't made like a really cool. I think there have been models that you'd have to put together and paint or whatever. I'm more of I'd buy it. You make the whole thing and I'll buy it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's kind of annoying because when 2049 came out,
yeah,
they started making merchandise for that.
Yeah.
And I was like, can you make stuff for the old movie too?
Maybe the original.
Because I don't want a Rick Deckard action figure where he's wearing a gray shirt and jeans.
Right.
And that's Blade Runner 2049. I want his weird retro futuristic trench coat with the weird shirt underneath and the pistol and everything. I don't know. It was just so bland. I part of me is thinking that was in his contract.
Right.
They're like, so Harrison, we're showing you some concept. I bet you there's concept art of him wearing some cool outfits in it.
Oh, probably.
And he was just like, no, I just want to wear gray shirt.
Can I wear an eagle shirt, perhaps?
They're like, really fine,
like
Harrison.
Guys.
So that's kind of disappointing.
You can see a sweater over me, right?
Yeah, so that's kind of disappointing, but I mean, what can you do? Yeah, so I don't know, man. It's such a landmark movie, and I get why a lot of people I know don't really care about it. Because it's not like it's this fun movie to watch. It's more, but that's kind of my personality too. When I listen to music, I tend to listen to more when I'm alone. At least I think it's a very, to me, it would be weird for me to watch this movie with anyone.
So it's a very solitary experience.
It is, you know what I mean. And when I listen to music, I tend to listen to more, some dark music. Yeah. Kind of gets me in a certain mood when I'm alone.
Melancholic or
and then the movie is kind of melancholic. Definitely.
Without a doubt.
And I think I think that is something that you watch by yourself, whereas
it's an acquired taste.
You can invite a bunch of people over and watch a comedy or something, and I think that's where a lot of maybe my friends are coming from. It's just not their bag. It's a little too slow. Blah blah blah. I guess as long as you kind of respect what it did for cinema and what it did for science fiction and how many things it influenced.
Oh, yeah.
That's it. I don't really care. No. My brothers hate Blade Runner. They think it sucks. And I'm like, all right, that's fine. I don't have to get pissed off about it.
Yeah, my brother just doesn't give a fuck.
Yeah, right.
He's just not that kind of dude. So that's...
Yeah. But that's why, like, I don't know, I would say a year into us, like when we first kind of started hanging out, I was like, wait a minute, do you like Blade Runner? That's usually my test for somebody when we're talking about more nerdy shit or whatever.
Sure, yeah.
Just like, do you like Blade Runner?
That's your metric.
Yeah, that's if you do, then we'll be okay. We'll be cool.
Yeah, exactly. I think you're the one person I met who I was like, oh, you like Blade Runner? Yeah, I like Blade Runner. Holy shit, you're the only other person in my life I know that likes Blade Runner.
I know, because I actually, you know what? I think one of my brothers never even saw. He just doesn't care to see it.
Yeah, it's a thing.
And then the other one's just like, I don't get it. You guys do what you want. You watch it, which is fine. Yeah, but
makes sense.
So yeah, we can get into a little bit now. The sequel.
Okay.
Which was how many years later?
Jesus fucking Christ, 30?
Yeah. So when you first hear it, they cast Ryan Gosling. I was like, oh, what are they? Yeah. I'm like, they're gonna try to make it more commercial. Yes. It's not gonna be as good. I wasn't familiar. Well, I was familiar with Denis because I think the first movie I saw of his was Prisoners.
Okay, yeah, I think I
with
saw
Hugh Jackman and Jake Gyllenhaal.
Yep, I think I saw. And
that movie was great. I really liked it.
Right.
So I was like, you know what? Maybe this is the guy.
Maybe
and this goes back to this what we were talking about with Dune as well. He's a fan of these things. He's a fan of science fiction in general, which is great. I mean, he made a really good science fiction movie prior to Blade Runner. Arrival was a good.
Oh yeah,
good sci-fi.
Was okay. That was all right.
It was more of a, I don't know, like a thinking man's. It was
really.
Yeah.
Not in my opinion.
Really?
It was just kind of another superficial fucking science fiction movie.
Okay.
I didn't really think it was all that deep.
Mm-hmm.
It really didn't do much for me on that level. I thought it was watchable.
Yeah.
Not necessarily one I would go back and revisit, though.
Okay.
Which is weird, because my first real... I think I saw Arrival first, and that didn't really do much, so I never really thought of Villeneuve. I saw Prisoners. That was good.
Yeah, it was good.
I never really jumped to conclusions after Prisoners, though. So I think my real first exposure to him on a science fiction level that I took to was the trailer they showed, I think, for Comic-Con, right before 2049 came out, with him Gosling walking through that vacant building, and it was like fucking orange and shit, and you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah, it's supposed to be Vegas
here?
Or something. That's where he finally meets up with Deckard.
Exactly, like right before that happens, and that was fucking great. I was like, dude, that is the most Blade Runner shit I've ever fucking seen. Just perfect. And so I honestly, I'm happy with the end result. That is not a movie I dislike.
No, me either. I don't like it as much as the first one. It doesn't have that same impact on me.
Sure.
I don't have that same connection with it.
Right.
I think it's a really good science fiction movie. It's a cool movie to just throw on your Blu-ray on your big screen and just watch it because it just looks so cool.
Definitely.
Obviously, the score I don't think is as good as Vangelis, but it's also not bad. It's its own. You kind of have to separate it.
Yeah.
This is its own thing. It's later on in this universe. I think the one thing I know they were trying to do their own story with Kay, with Ryan Gosling's character, which was fine. Like that in itself is just a cool self-contained movie, but I wish there was a little bit more of Deckard in it. Yeah, he comes in. It's so far into the movie when he first shows up.
It's like an hour and a half, 45 minutes into the movie.
So that definitely surprised me, but he's good in it too. I mean, I like the whole movie. I think the best thing I could say about it is, obviously it's not as good as the first one, but it doesn't ruin it for me at least. It doesn't ruin anything about Blade Runner. It doesn't taint the legacy of Blade Runner, which has such a cult following, basically.
Oh yeah.
And it doesn't do anything to tarnish that.
Right.
So I guess that's the best we could have asked for.
Yeah, I agree. I would agree.
Whether or not I think it's like an amazing movie or not, I think it was pretty good.
Right. No, it's not something you go out of your way to hate.
And definitely a cut above any of the modern science fiction movies that we've seen for the past, 10 years.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a lot of garbage out there nowadays. Holy crap.
All right, so obviously we were talking about Blade Runner 2049, the long-awaited sequel. I don't think anybody was even actually waiting for a sequel for that. They always just thought it was a one and done, but
it's more like the sequel they didn't see coming.
Yeah, and it was surprising to have this, even if you want to call it a franchise now. I still don't think it should be.
No.
But now we're seeing different things. I was just talking about the comics that they're making now. But you showed me the other day, actually, last time we got together, we were talking about there's a new show coming out. There's a Blade Runner show.
So I guess the show is called Black Lotus, and I kind of have no fucking idea what the hell they're alluding to or what that could possibly mean, and not in a good way, where it's like, ooh, what's the fucking mystery behind what they got going on here? It's just like, why the fuck is it called Black Lotus? It's so fucking angsty. I really don't even know really where they're going to take that story to a certain degree. Like, I understood Blade Runner 2049, and that kind of felt like a natural progression of the story, but I don't see how you would see those two films in context or read the book and then go, okay, well, this anime is clearly the next logical step in this narrative.
Is it even an anime? Because the animation looks like... Remember those old Final Fantasy movies that had the sort of CGI animation or whatever? It looks like that, and it also looks like... I don't know if you remember this. MTV or MTV2, back in the day, they did like a Spider-Man show that was that same... Okay. It was like CGI animation or whatever.
Right.
It looks like it's from that era. It doesn't even look new. And it's like they kind of get the aesthetic. I think there's one shot. You showed me the trailer.
Right.
And there's that one shot where the main character is going up an elevator or something, and you kind of see like the lights, the lighting, and the rain.
Oh yes, that was the only aspect that reminded me of Blade
Runner. But everything else, it's just like really cliche stuff where it's like, I'm a lonely girl and I'm walking down an alleyway and a bunch of men come and they're like, hey, what are you doing?
Right.
Where'd you come from?
Right.
Please, I don't want any trouble. It's like, she's probably... Did they explain it in the trailer? Is she a replicant?
I don't... Honestly, I don't know, but I wouldn't put it past her.
I
don't know.
Because she was kicking ass and doing like all these
I assume
moves.
it's gonna be something like what Ryan Gosling was in 2049. She's probably some form of fucking, a replicant that's out there to serve a specific function, and all that fucking happy nuts. It's like, who gives a fuck? Like that, really?
Yeah,
that's not what this is about. This is not an action movie.
They could have maybe won me over if they showed a good premise, kind of get you interested in whatever this character's story is, and then also hire somebody to make some cool, Vangelis-like music. I know it's not going to be the same because it's not him, but at least get the mood right. They have the modern day stupid trailer music where it's just some pop song. And a lot of people said in the comments were hilarious to watch on YouTube, because this nothing about this is Blade Runner. This is not at all. It's just so stupid. But the thing is, at the same time, I don't even care. I don't care to watch the show. I'm probably not gonna watch it.
No.
But it's not gonna affect my enjoyment of Blade Runner. It's because it's not to me. It's not even connected. It's not even. It's
autonomous.
Yeah, and it's also like fan fiction
to a certain degree. Yeah, I would agree.
That's
with that,
what it feels like to me.
Absolutely.
So. Yeah, so I don't know. That was hilarious. I had no. I'm so out of the loop with all this current stuff, and I had no idea that Adult Swim was going to make a Blade. Like, if that was 10 years ago, and you said to me, Adult Swim's going to make a cool Blade Runner show, I was like, oh, that would be awesome.
Right.
They'll probably have some cool animation and do it up. It'll be very adult. It looks so generic.
Yeah.
And that you can't have Blade Runner look like that.
It's too smooth. Like, all the characters are too smooth looking and blocky, kind of, and it just looks like it's a poor form of animation. I don't really know why they chose that. Like, you could even compare it to some of I guess what I would consider the animation they didn't take too seriously on that channel back in the day, like Boondocks. Like that was even for what that was fucking great.
Yeah, right.
A lot of that shit. You had Afro Samurai, and all that was fucking great. It's like, dude, well, why does everything have to be somewhat 3-dimensional? You couldn't make it look hand-drawn and kind of traditional, and get the atmosphere right, get the tone right, because not even the tone's right. I'm sorry, just because it's raining and it's cloudy doesn't mean it's fucking
you can't just get away with that.
It's like, no.
So that's a little discouraging. I mean, that mixed with the comics now, I'm a little
just in a bad spot.
Just not into it, and that's fine. I got the movie, that's fine.
Oh yeah, it's absolutely.
I also have. I got to show you one day or one night when we're hanging out. I ordered a couple years ago. I ordered the Marvel Comics adaptation of Blade Runner.
I never read that.
It's just fucking great because it's.
Right.
I think. God, who did it? It might have been Archie Goodwin. I forget.
Okay.
It's been a while since I pulled those out of one of my long boxes, but
Jesus Christ, yeah.
It's one of those things I had to have it. I had to have the adaptation because I love when they do movie adaptations, and Marvel Comics did it.
Really?
And in the 80s.
Definitely. They did most of them back in the 80s.
It was cool. The one cool thing is there's a panel in it that when they're talking about off-world colonies or whatever, they show you it for a little bit. So that was interesting to see. Yeah. Obviously, it's not like that's canon or anything to the overall story, but it's fun.
To be fair, the movie we get to see isn't canon to the fucking book that was written.
No, right. It's its own. Everything is its own thing.
It is,
and that's fine. And Blade Runner is like that. It's not the only thing, I guess, that is 2049, and that's cool.
All right. So, for some strange reason, I really am having a difficult time trying to understand what the fuck is going on with that trailer when I watch it. I like it narrative wise. I see what's going on, but I'm kind of puzzled on the story they're trying to tell. So I guess the question I would ask is, why do you think, from what you've seen in the trailer, why does that seem like the next logical step in that narrative? You get to see the original movie, and it's fantastic. You get to see 2049, and it's fucking good. And it's a great story. It serves the first movie. It does a good job. And then you see the trailer for this anime, like, and I'm just puzzled by it. You know, like, not much goes on in the trailer for when they released 2049 and stuff like that. It was just a dude walking through the vacant building, and it's kind of fucking, you know, it's apocalypse Las Vegas and shit, and everything felt Blade Runner. There was nothing narrative going on with that, and it still felt like Blade Runner. Everybody, it was just good. You know, I don't really have much to pick apart about that. But when I watch this, I'm like, what the fuck? This Black Lotus thing. So why would that be, or why do you think that would be the next logical step in that narrative? Why the fuck would they choose to do something like this?
I think, I don't know for sure. I would assume that, well, at least it looks like it. A lot of people that are involved in that show, it feels like they're not really true fans of the first film, because it almost looks like they got notes from the studio or whatever the hell they were doing,
sure,
saying, can you make it more like the Matrix or something?
Yeah.
Have her like kicking people and doing all these like martial arts and shit.
Yeah.
They want it to have that Blade Runner feel, aesthetic, but they don't want to get into some of the more heady stuff. Right. It doesn't look as smart as the movies. It just looks like a dumb action thriller or whatever.
That's my issue. I think it really, with something like Blade Runner, if you're going to try and adapt it in some way or tell your own story and you jump straight to the action thing, like, you are not the person for that job.
Right.
You don't really understand the source material or really what it was going for. It's just not an action movie. There's nothing about Blade Runner that's an action fucking movie.
No, I mean,
the action parts happen.
Yeah, it's still not the focus of it. It's not.
No, that's not really what's going on. They happen, like, but it's more to serve the story, not, you know, be the focus of it. Or it does kind of turn into the Matrix.
Yeah, and I just feel like everything you're saying right now, watching the trailer, and I feel like this with a lot of stuff now too, something's off. What is off here?
Right.
Really, it kind of boils down to, obviously, what we were talking about earlier with the comics and people having their own thing. They got to get their messaging into
agenda,
it.
Yeah.
But it's also, I just really think that people aren't as talented as they were back in the day making movies, or at least in some of the mainstream stuff, or some of the people infiltrating all these properties.
Yeah,
because I just think they're not as talented. And part of it probably comes from, I remember somebody saying this a while ago, kind of saying something like, how come there aren't any modern day, you know, Mozarts or Beethovens and stuff? It's like, because we have too much technology. You're too distracted to sit down and write a symphony. Right. You know what I mean? So if you think about it, back in the day, there was less technology. You got people like Ridley Scott putting together this movie, Blade Runner and Alien. They were focused, and they also had the talent. So they got shit done, and it was amazing. I bet you all the creators working on that fucking Black Lotus show or whatever are probably on Twitter every day, just like tweeting away about nonsense, about what sandwich they have, or trying to fucking cancel somebody or some bullshit, instead of, hey, I'm really into Blade Runner, let's try to make this a really cool animated show that fits in with the, you know, with the legacy of Blade Runner. They're not interested in that. They're just like, fuck it, let's just ruin another franchise. Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
I think a lot of, in terms of talent and stuff like that, I think back in the day, you had to prove your worth, you had to earn your keep, and that type of setting.
Now they'll just hire you because you're something.
Right.
It's like, oh, you're a girl, we'll hire you. And it's like, oh, well, are you talented?
You're X, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you're something that they find marketable, which is strange. Not that your material is marketable, which is odd. You know, that I don't think that's really happened like that before, like it has recently. But,
yeah.
Like, so a lot of these people, Ridley Scott and handful of others, like they come from kind of a blue collar background in terms of their film experience before they actually got offered sort of making these big time movies. Like, I think Ridley Scott filmed like over 2,000 commercials.
Yep. He had to go through all this shit, man.
Yeah, like, you had to actually learn your talent, you know, learn your craft and work your way the fuck up and earn your keep, prove your worth.
It was all based on merit,
and I don't know if that happens anymore.
No, because nothing is based on merit anymore.
No, it's like you get lucky or you don't get lucky, and if your first film is successful, then chances are maybe your second film is successful, and if that isn't, your career is probably fucked. Like it's a weird thing. There aren't really any auteurs anymore.
No,
or anybody with that kind of freedom, other than you have
Quentin Tarantino.
That's only because he's still making movies. Like
right.
When he's retired.
There's no new Quentin Tarantino. Is that what you're saying?
There is absolutely no new Quentin Tarantino.
Right.
You know?
I think I'm not the biggest indie film guy where I listen to a lot. Or I'm sorry. I watch a lot of the new up-and-coming people that are making indie movies, and I'm sure there's good shit out there that's not mainstream. But it would be cool if a lot of those people doing more experimental stuff or more daring stuff kind of come into the mainstream and bring that energy into it. But it doesn't look like that's really happening, as far as I'm concerned.
Exactly. Well,
I don't know.
Not the people who would
From what I've watched.
Absolutely, like the people who would be, who should be exposed to that kind of stuff, who would appreciate that kind of stuff. That you don't really get exposed to that type of shit. It's more or less like, what's the next Taika Waititi movie, which is not a huge problem. I think he's a funny dude. Like, what was it? Thor Ragnarok was fucking funny as shit.
Right.
Like, there's a handful of people now who are somewhat new, who are getting their name out there, but you can't really take them seriously. They're not really auteurs. They're more like handpicked studio directors that are, who have a little bit more freedom than the rest of their stock directors. Because there's a lot of people out there, I think, who like to claim originality and stuff like that. It's like, I would like to tell you how original I am. By the way, I'm making the next King Kong movie. Yeah. It's like, no.
Well, yeah. Well, that's why I would like, who's the guy that did like The Witch and Lighthouse? Robert Eggers, right? Is that his name? Eggers.
Dude, what a fucking good. See,
I would love to see him do an original science fiction movie.
Yes, like
that would be
that
cool.
would be such a slow burn. I don't know.
Yeah, but it would be like he could make the next kind of Blade Runner type.
I agree.
You know what I mean?
I mean, like, all right. So the first time I saw The Witch, that was one of those movies I didn't really want to give the time of day because it just seemed too pretentious.
Sure.
When I was seeing like some of the trailers and stuff, I was a little bit younger. But that kind of turned into a good movie. It took me up until a few years ago to sit down and go, like, you know what? That's a good fucking movie.
Right.
I don't know why. They all sound like a bunch of assholes, but it's such a, like, his sense of context and it's felt authentic. And I really love that about most of his films. Like, did you see Lighthouse?
I actually I've seen The Witch. I've seen The Witch twice, actually, but I haven't seen The Lighthouse yet. Maybe I'm, like, waiting for the perfect time to watch it.
There is no perfect time to watch The Lighthouse.
I want to, like, turn off all my lights and light a couple candles and sit down.
I watched
my wife's going to be like, what the hell is this shit?
I did not see it in theaters. I waited for it to come out. It was one of those movies I was waiting for to come out. It's just like, all right, it's Robert Eggers. I'm going to give it a shot. It's probably going to be good.
Yep.
It could be good. It could be bad. Who knows? But I ended up watching it. Like, my first real experience, I was like, what the fuck am I seeing right now? I get it, but, like, really?
I think I'd probably like it. I think I'd like it.
No, see, I thought the same way.
Yeah.
I know exactly how you feel right now, and I just want you to throw that right the fuck out the window with this movie. Not that it's a bad movie.
Yeah.
Just, like, it's not one of those ones that you revisit often.
Okay.
You know what I mean? It's just like that. You sit back and you're like, okay, that was a strange experience. It wasn't a bad experience. I wouldn't call it a particularly great experience, but not horrible by any stretch of the imagination. A very watchable movie. Like, the tone is fantastic, and the characters in and of themselves are very interesting. He's a very compelling writer. I think him and his brother wrote that. Very,
cool.
Very compelling.
Yeah.
But it's also not one that's going to lend itself to any form of mainstream audience. Like, you're going to win an award with that movie for one reason or other, whether it's your production design, your set design, your screenplay, whatever the hell it might be. You're going to win something or nominated for fucking something when that movie comes out. But that you are certainly not capturing the imagination of the public.
I know, and people like Denis have kind of broken through that, with Blade Runner, which was not the biggest hit, but it made way for, now he's doing Dune, so that I think that's going to be a way bigger. I don't even know if it's going to be hit, but it'll be way way bigger than Blade Runner.
I would almost consider Villeneuve almost like an auteur to a certain degree. But he's like an auteur with like a license from the studio. For some strange reason, like a lot of his films are successful. I think he did Sicario or something.
Yeah, Sicario, right?
I never really watched that movie. I don't really.
It was good. It was good.
I don't give a damn about that subject. You know what I mean?
Yeah, if it's not interesting to you,
it wasn't a movie. I never really saw the movie. It's just like the subject. It was just not my thing. So I was like,
just didn't even want to check it out. Right.
Arrival. I was like, all right, I'm into that. So I checked that out. I wasn't thrilled. I didn't hate it. You know, didn't hate it. And then it was 2049.
Right.
And he fucking blew me away with that. After I saw that, that's why I kind of feel so confident on what he's going to do with Dune.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like I don't think it's going to be the perfect fucking movie at all, but I don't think I'm going to hate that movie. And for a movie as risky or as kind of that makes me apprehensive like Dune does, that I don't know. I'm in a weird spot with it.
Yeah. I can't believe they let him make Blade Runner, because that was just so. It's a long movie. It's a long movie. Blade Runner 2049.
And that's that's not really the direction I thought. I guess he would go in, or that he would shift to, because that's all he seems to be doing now. It's like he did Blade Runner 2049, and they were like, that looked great. How do you feel about these properties that we can't possibly give to anybody else? Can you do anything with these, because we want to buy the rights back next year?
I like that he did Blade Runner, even though he probably knew deep down that it wasn't the most popular thing for him to do, but I love that he just went for it anyway because he really likes it, and he's doing the same thing with Dune, which is good. So you want some guy like that to do these properties that I love,
right?
And thank God it was him. We've talked about this before, because we've had some drunken 2049
without a
thoughts before. We've had some conversations about it.
Absolutely.
And whatever we nitpick with it, or on my part or your part, we always come to that conclusion, like, thank God he did it and not anybody else.
Exactly.
Because if anyone else did it, it would have been
unforgivable,
so much worse. It could have really screwed up everything.
Absolutely.
So,
like the
thank
dude
God.
Who's the dude who made the X-Men movies? I can't remember his fucking name.
Like the original ones?
No, like the movies that came out. Yeah, what the hell was his name? He made him for like freaking 20 years, and then he got freaking shit canned because they caught him doing...
Bryan Singer?
Bryan Singer. Like, who's like, I really want to take a stab at science fiction. I'm going to make Dune. That would be...
No,
that would shatter my soul, you know what I mean?
I wouldn't like that. No.
That wouldn't just be a horrible movie. That would, like, break me, I think.
Well,
like, if you could give it to the wrong person, you don't even have to see it. It's like, I'm broken.
Right.
That's horrible. Like, I can tell you, this is
I know, it just kind of worked
version.
out. It just kind of worked out that Denis doing it. It's like, okay, that's good. He actually likes the book. He's been this is like his whole career's been leading up to this, so that's good. And he also pretty much did the same thing with Blade Runner. That was like one of his favorite movies growing up. Yeah. So now here's my question, bringing it back to Blade Runner. Do you... to me, the comics, unfortunately, the comics and like this new show that's coming out, that doesn't count to me. I'm saying cinematically, would you be for or against seeing anything ever again on screen?
Ever again.
In this universe. And maybe if it's like, even if it's like a pseudo sequel to 2049, or it goes back in time or whatever, are you...
Not anytime soon.
Okay.
I mean, if the right person was doing it, maybe I wouldn't be opposed. It would kind of... I guess I would have the same reaction if that question was asked of me before the sequel was made to the first Blade Runner.
Right.
It's like, how would you feel about, a sequel to this movie? And it's just like, I don't know. That's kind of that's a total... you just feel in limbo. It's like, as much as I would love to see a really good movie in that universe again, I just don't. I don't know if I would trust anybody. I like...
Yeah.
With my happiness, because you're that's like saying, all right, it's up to you to make me happy over the course of the next 3.5 hours, and I couldn't give that to anybody. I don't think so.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you that first, because my answer is no, hell no, no. Keep it with the original Blade Runner and then 2049, and that's it. That's fine.
I agree.
Don't do anything. And I don't think they're even going to do anything. They'll do a lot of stuff like they're doing now. They're going to do a little stupid TV show.
How would you feel?
Please, God, no, don't do it.
This is happening. All right, so they did it 30 years later. They made the sequel like 30 years after the release of the first movie. How would you feel about one 30 years from now? Would you feel different because it's so far away?
Maybe a little bit more, yeah. Because hopefully everybody calms down by then and stops being a freaking weirdo.
Right. It becomes about the story again.
And just like, let's get down to the bare bones and let's like make a cool movie and not think about anything else. Like, let's just think about the artistry here. Right. You know, like maybe in 30 years we'll get to that point again if everything fucking calms down. Yeah. You know? But no, definitely not now, for sure. That's my answer. But I am maybe open to it. I'll be an old man. I'll be an older man. Like,
all is not lost.
They're doing it. They're doing the Blade Runner again.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
they better not fuck it up.
I want to be worried about my arthritis and my sciatic nerve the next time they make a fucking Blade Runner movie. And
we'll be doing a podcast where all you have to do is just fucking like telepathically think about what we're gonna say and just like.
Could you imagine the fucking Alzheimer's podcast?
Yeah, the Alzheimer's podcast.
Everything.
Well, everybody get ready for that podcast in about 40 years. It's gonna be awesome.
We'll probably forget about it.
Well, you know what? I think that pretty much wraps it up. You know, we had a little Blade Runner discussion. We've been wanting to get that out of our system for a while. We've had many conversations about it. I've always hinted at it on my channel, saying it was my favorite movie of all time. Definitely. It was cool to talk about it in depth a little bit more. We could have went on for freaking 5 hours.
If we really wanted to break down everything in this movie and get everything out of our system, like, there's no fucking, like, we would have been here for.
But I think this is more of a just a podcast for people that really love that movie, that just want to hear two dudes talk about it. Just talk about what we liked about it and some of the other stuff, which is it's to me, it's amusing that they're making more shit. It's like, don't touch this, please.
Yeah, I know. It's
just so stupid.
It's one of those things. It's like,
can nothing be sacred?
Nothing is sacred. That's kind of what I've been learning over the course of the last few years. It's like, literally, nothing is fucking sacred. And if there was any indication of that, it's The Force Awakens. Nothing is sacred.
That's true. God, please don't get me started on that.
No, that's going to be a podcast.
Oh, we're gonna do it. Yeah, because you know, I don't know what we're gonna call this yet. It'll probably just be like a Blade Runner discussion on the channel, but we are gonna open it up to talk about more things. But don't worry, we're coming back with a vengeance. I don't know when it's going to be, but we're coming back with episode 2 of the Drunken Idaho podcast. So stick around for that. We're going to get back there. We're going to finish up the first Dune book.
For sure.
And we'll get a little bit, maybe we'll hear some new stuff about the movie that we can go over as well. But yeah, I mean, this is cool. I'm down to do this again. We can do it with another science fiction movie. We can maybe even get some guests in that like some of the similar science fiction stuff. It doesn't have to be Blade Runner, because obviously we said that.
It's not just about Blade Runner.
It would just be all our friends like, no, we don't like it.
That don't mean
and
we'd
be like, whoa,
revisit Blade Runner.
Yeah. So, that about wraps it up. Catch us next time. We'll probably do another one of these probably before the Drunken Idaho podcast. But, I had a good time, and take care, everybody.
Yep, thanks for listening.
All right.
See you.
Hey everyone, it's Ron here with a quick announcement. When I started this channel, I was reading and reviewing the Dune books and other sci-fi related material, and most of you might not know that I'm also a musician. So when I was reading these sci-fi books, I started to get inspired and decided to make my own soundtrack to use for my videos, and now I'm excited to tell you all about the first volume in the Ron Reviews original soundtrack collection. This album includes the first 17 tracks featured on my channel, and it's available now exclusively on Bandcamp. Be sure to check the description of this video for the link to the album. Thanks so much for the support so far. I know I'm just starting out, but I hope you're having as much fun as I am. So check out the original soundtrack Volume 1 on Bandcamp. This music is great if you want something moody and atmospheric to listen to while you're reading some science fiction. I think you're going to love it. Thanks.